Please note that this podcast contains information regarding sensitive events, including domestic violence, assault, and abuse, as well as other triggering events, such as murder. This podcast is intended for mature audiences. When Alice jumped down the rabbit hole, she immediately regretted her decision. A rabbit hole is a metaphor for something that transports someone into a troubling, surreal state or situation. Welcome to Afterglow, the Unveiling of the Idaho Cult. This is Season 3, Episode 3, Chad Daybell's preliminary hearing, Detective Hermosillo takes the stand. The story is so compelling, so bizarre, and so heinous, it's impossible to look the other way. Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow were dedicated in the most horrible way to an ideology that should only be fiction. Instead, their ideology put them behind bars. Join us as we explore the lives, lies, and diabolical crimes of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. I'm your host, Kathy Brooks. Please follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to Afterglow, the Unveiling of the Idaho Cult, and Happy New Year to you all. I hope everyone is starting out the new year in a blessed and happy way. In this episode today, we step into the intense 2-day preliminary hearing of Chad Daybell, where revelations pour forth, shedding light onto the layers surrounding the tragic deaths of Tylee, Ryan, and J.J. Vallow. This preliminary hearing takes place before murder charges have ever been brought. Chad is up against the original charges. But, as you know, in the future, things take a very dark turn for Chad and a turn towards justice for JJ, Tylee, and Tammy. So Chad and Lori are locked behind bars at this point, and they are in the harsh glare of scrutiny. Now, Chad faces this preliminary hearing, and this pivotal moment unfolds as Detective Hermosillo takes the stand. He unveils a torrent of new information that promises to reshape our understanding of this haunting case. Join us as we dissect the gripping testimony, delving deep into the intricacies of the case that have remained veiled for so long. The revelations from this hearing promise to unfurl a tapestry of shocking details, altering the narrative and exposing unseen facets of this tragic case.
Thank you. Please be seated. We're going to go back on the record in CR 2220-755, State of Idaho versus Chad Daybell. The court took a brief recess so I could have a sidebar with counsel from the defense and the state. We'll proceed forward. Mr. Wood, does the state wish to make an opening argument?
We didn't miss anything. I just started it after they did their sidebar because they basically started the case with a sidebar. So here we go again.
Here today.
No, Your Honor, the state will just proceed.
Mr. Pryor, does the defense wish to make any opening arguments?
Not at this time, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
Mr. Wood, you may call your first witness.
Thank you. The state calls Ray Hermosillo.
Mr. Hermosillo, if you'll please come forward, stand here in front of the witness stand, raise your right arm and face the clerk.
You solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this class not pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Mr. Hermosillo, you can be seated here at the witness stand. Once you enter that witness stand, because it is surrounded by plexiglass, I'll allow you to remove your mask. If you'll get fairly close to that microphone so that we can make a record of you. Mr. Hermosillo, we are making a court record as well. So if you'll make sure to listen to the full question before you begin answering, it will ensure that no two people are talking over each other on the record. Mr. Hermosillo, if you'll give your full name as well as your occupation, we'll get started.
Ray Dennis Hermosillo. I'm a detective with the Rexburg Police Department.
Thank you. Mr. Wood, you may inquire when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before I do ask Mr. or Detective Hermosillo any questions, I have several self-authenticating documents and documents that should come into the court under Rule 201. And I will provide those to the court. State's Exhibit 1. I'm assuming I hand this to the bailiff.
Mr. Pryor, have you seen a copy of State's Exhibit 1?
I have gotten all of the exhibits at this point, but in terms of the numeric order that they're put in, I have seen that, Judge, and there's no objection to that.
All right. Exhibit 1 will be admitted. Mr. Wood, would you like that to be handed to the witness?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then, Your Honor, I have several more State's Exhibit 2.
Exhibit 2 will be handed to the bailiff. Ms. Bailiff, if you'll please show that to Mr. Pryor. Mr. Pryor, any objection to the self-authentication of Exhibit 2 being admitted?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 2 will be admitted.
State's Exhibit 3.
Ms. Bailiff, if you'll do the same with Exhibit 3. Mr. Pryor, any objection to Exhibit 3?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 3 will be admitted.
State's Exhibit 4.
Any objection to Exhibit 4, Mr. Pryor?
No objection, Judge.
Exhibit 4 will be admitted.
State's Exhibit 5.
No objection, Judge.
Exhibit 5 will be admitted.
Your Honor, State's Exhibits 1 through 5 are all self-authenticating documents. I have 2 documents I will ask the court to take judicial notice of. The first is an order on a petition under the Child Protective Act in Madison County case CV 33-20-45 in the interest of Tylee, Ashlyn Ryland, and Joshua Jackson Vallow. This order was signed by yourself in that case.
Mr. Pryor, any objection to the court taking judicial notice of that document?
Judge, if I could have just one moment, may I please?
No problem. Mr. Wood, you're not asking for that document to be marked?
We will ask for it to be marked and entered as an exhibit as well.
Okay, Exhibit 6. Is that correct?
Yes.
No objection.
Exhibit 6 will be admitted.
And then
Would you like me to just take that into the clerk's possession at this point, Mr. Wood?
yes, that would be fine.
Court will do so.
And one more document the state would ask the court to take judicial notice of, and that we'd ask to be entered as State's Exhibit 7, an order in that same child protection case deeming that Lori Vallow was served on January 25th and that any errors in that service were cured.
Okay. Mr. Pryor, any objection to Exhibit 7?
No objection, Judge.
Exhibit 7 will be admitted. The court will take judicial notice of said exhibit. Mr. Wood, any other?
No, if I may inquire of the witness now.
You may inquire when you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. Hermosillo, will you state your name and spell it for the court?
Ray Dennis Hermosillo, RayDennis Hermosillo.
Thank you. What is your current occupation?
I'm a detective with the Rexburg City Police Department.
How long have you been a detective?
Over a year,
Okay. How long have you been with the Rexburg Police Department?
19 years.
Are you post-certified?
I am.
Detective, have you ever had the opportunity to meet the defendant, Chad Daybell?
Yes,
Is he here in the court today?
he is.
Can you point him out and describe what he's wearing?
Sitting at the defense table in white shirt, blue tie.
Detective, how did you become involved in the investigation regarding J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan?
In early November, I was contacted by Gilbert Police Department. I was asked to seize a Jeep that was in Lori Vallow's possession. Along with that, I was asked to perform intermittent surveillance.
And did you do that for the Gilbert Police Department?
I did.
Okay. Did they ever ask you to do anything else?
Yes.
What was that?
I was asked to do a welfare check on November 25th,
Okay.
2019.
2019?
Yes, sir.
Who were you asked to do a welfare check on?
A 7-year-old boy by the name of Joshua Jackson Vallow, who also went by JJ.
Okay. And is it all right with you if I just refer to that child as JJ from here on out?
Yes.
Okay. Detective, have you ever met JJ Vallow?
No.
Have you ever met Tylee Ryan?
No.
Okay. Through your investigation, have you learned what J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan looked like?
I have.
Okay. How have you done that?
I've seen hundreds of videos and photographs of Tylee and JJ both.
Okay. Detective, I'm going to ask you to look at State's Exhibit 1.
Before we get any further into this, let me just remind the media that pursuant to Idaho Court Administrative Rule 32, the court is prohibiting the photography or the filming of any exhibits until further order of the court. That would include, but not be limited to, any documents that are exhibits, any pictures that are exhibits, and any film that are exhibits that are going to be played potentially today. I will allow the cameras to remain running so that the audio can be recorded, but any photography or filming of any of those exhibits is prohibited. Also, any filming or recording of any of the table of the defense, any notes or anything else is prohibited, as well as the state. So with that, Mr. Wood, you may proceed.
Thank you. Detective, do you have State's Exhibit 1?
I do.
What is that document?
This is a birth certificate for Kane and Trahan.
For who?
Kane and Trahan,
Okay. And what is Kane and Trahan's birth date?
May 25th, 2012.
Okay. And who are Kane and Trahan's parents listed as?
Dennis Trahan and Mandy Ledger.
Okay. Thank you. Detective, can you look at State's Exhibit 2? What is that document?
An adoption decree.
Okay. Who is listed on that adoption decree? Who is the child listed on that adoption decree?
Kane and Trahan.
Kane and Trahan. Who are the adoptive parents of Kane and Trahan?
Mr. Wood, I'm having a hard time hearing. Are you saying Cayman?
Canaan.
Canaan, can you have the witness spell that name, please?
Canaan.
And the last name?
Trahan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who are the adoptive parents of Kane and Trahan?
Leland Charles Anthony Vallow and Lori Noreen Cox Vallow.
Okay. And does that document contain a name change for Kane and Trahan?
It does.
What is his name changed to?
Joshua Jackson Vallow.
Okay. Detective, will you look at State's Exhibit 3? What is that document?
A birth certificate.
Who is it a birth certificate for?
Joshua Jackson Vallow.
Okay. And what is the birth date listed on that?
May 25th, 2012.
Thank you. Will you look at State's Exhibit 4? What is that document?
A birth certificate.
Who is it a birth certificate for?
Tylee Ashlyn Ryan.
What is her birth date listed?
9/24/2002.
And who are the parents listed on that?
Joseph Anthony Ryan Jr. and Lori Noreen Cox.
Okay. And Detective, will you look at State's Exhibit 5? What is that?
A marriage certificate.
Who is it a marriage certificate for?
Chad Guy Daybell and Lori Noreen Ryan Vallow.
Okay, and what is the date of marriage?
November 5th, 2019.
And where was that certificate of marriage issued?
In Hawaii, on the island of Kauai.
Okay, thank you. Detective, you testified earlier you were asked to do a welfare check, correct?
Correct.
What did you do in response to that welfare check?
On November 26th, 2019, myself and Detective Hope went to 565 Pioneer Road, which was Lori Vallow's residence. We ended up making contact with the defendant, Mr. Daybell, and Alex Cox.
I'm going to stop you there. Who was Alex Cox?
Alex Cox is Lori's brother.
Okay. So you made contact with them. What happened?
I made contact with Alex and asked Alex if Lori was home.
How did he respond?
Judge, I'm going to object hearsay.
Mr. Wood?
Your Honor, this is a statement of a co-conspirator coming in. He's an unavailable witness because he's no longer living, but it's still a statement of a co-conspirator, and I think it comes in.
Mr. Pryor, let you respond to that.
Judge, I'd like to see the court documents that list Mr. Alex Cox as a co-conspirator. I don't believe those documents are presently in existence at this point, so I have nothing that supports that other than Mr. Wood's statement.
Mr. Wood?
Your Honor, the complaint alleges Mr. Daybell, Mrs. Vallow, conspirators known and known, and the probable cause affidavit clearly lists Alex Cox as a co-conspirator.
Mr. Pryor, it appears that Mr. Wood is explaining that because it is information communicated between co-conspirators named in a criminal complaint, it falls under the rule of non-hearsay under the Idaho criminal rules. Do you wish, or excuse me, the Idaho rules of evidence. Do you wish to respond to that?
Judge, the complaint also lists known and unknown. So at this point, if we go by Mr. Wood's analysis, anybody could be listed or mentioned as a co-conspirator, and all sorts of information can come in. So at this point, I stand by my initial response, which is, at least from my reading of the pleadings and the current criminal charges that are filed, there are two people that are alleged in this thing. And at that point, that's what I believe the proper application of the rule is.
The court is going to overrule the objection. The court finds that Alex Cox is named in the criminal complaint. At this juncture, we're at a preliminary hearing stage where probable cause is the standard. Mr. Pryor, if there are other co-conspirators that are named or that are brought up here today, you may renew your objection, or you may renew your objection in a further time if you feel that the allegation has not been presented sufficiently enough to show that Mr. Cox is a co-conspirator. But I am going to allow it. Under 801, the exception that allows for co-conspirator communication to be admitted. So with that, Mr. Wood, you may continue to inquire.
Thank you. Detective, can you answer that question?
Can you ask it one more time, please?
Yes. So will you have testified you made contact with Mr. Daybell and Mr. Cox? What did you ask Mr. Cox?
I asked Mr. Cox if Lori Vallow was home.
How did he respond?
He stated she was not home.
Okay. What happened after that?
I asked Alex if JJ was home. I informed Mr. Cox why I was there is to do a welfare check on JJ. So I asked him if he was there.
How did he respond?
Initially, he didn't respond. He just looked at the defendant Daybell and didn't answer my question initially.
Okay. And then what happened?
I asked him again, and he stated that Joshua was with his grandma Kay in Louisiana.
Okay. How did you respond to that?
I told Mr. Cox that was unlikely because Kay was the one who originally called in the welfare check.
All right. What happened after that?
I asked Mr. Cox how I can get a hold of Lori and asked him for her phone number.
How did he respond?
He stated he didn't have it.
Okay. What did that make you think when he told you he didn't have his phone number?
Judge, I'm going to object.
Reason?
Judge, this witness can offer his recitation of the facts, but if we're going to start getting into the issue of whether or not he gets to present his impression in terms of what a third party had told him, I think is inappropriate.
Mr. Wood, can you repeat the question for the court?
The question was what Detective Hermosillo thought of Mr. Cox's response that he did not have Lori Vallow's phone number.
Mr. Wood, you want to respond to the objection made by Mr. Pryor?
Your Honor, I'm not aware of any rule that doesn't allow the detective to describe his thoughts on an investigation.
I'm going to overrule the objection. Mr. Hermosillo, you can give your thoughts as to what you were feeling at that time. Mr. Pryor, if that goes beyond thoughts, you're welcome to re-up your objection, and I'll take it up to.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Wood.
Can you answer the question?
I thought it was suspicious because I knew that they had been close based on my initial investigation.
Okay. What happened after that, Detective?
I asked Mr. Cox where I could find Lori so I can make contact with her. And he stated that she was in apartment 107.
Okay. Once you learned that information, what did you do?
Myself and Detective Dave Hope then went to 107 to attempt to make contact with Lori.
What happened there?
Detective Dave Hope went to knock on the front door. As he was knocking on the front door, I saw the defendant Daybell driving towards me in his black Equinox.
Okay. And what did you do?
I stopped Mr. Daybell to further speak with him.
Yeah. Did you ask him any questions?
I did.
What did you ask him?
I asked Mr. Daybell when's the last time he saw JJ, and he stated that he saw JJ in apartment 107 in October.
Okay. Now, apartment 107, do you know who, you stated this was on 565 Pioneer Road. Do you know who apartment 107 belonged to, or who lived in that apartment?
Not at that time.
Okay. What happened after he gave you that answer?
I asked Mr. Daybell for Lori Vallow's phone number, and he stated he didn't have it.
Okay. What did you think when he told you he didn't have her number?
I again found it suspicious because I knew that they were married 2 weeks prior to my contact with Mr. Daybell.
Okay. And again, just for clarification, what was the date we're talking about now? What was that date?
November 26th, 2019.
Okay. Did you ask Mr. Daybell any other questions?
I did. I asked Mr. Daybell how he knew Lori Vallow, and he stated that he had only met her a couple times through Alex Cox.
Okay. What happened after that?
Detective Hope had come back to where we were speaking. I again asked Mr. Daybell if he had Lori's phone number, and at that point, he gave me Lori Vallow's phone number.
Okay. Did you ask him why he hadn't given you that number?
I did.
And what was his response?
He stated that he felt like I was accusing him of something.
Okay. In your interaction with him, had you accused him of anything?
No.
Okay. What did you do in your investigation after that?
I broke contact with Mr. Daybell and called Lieutenant Ron Ball to respond to my location. Based on Mr. Daybell's actions, Mr. Cox's actions, what I was told about them hardly knowing each other, I felt there was something more going on with the whereabouts of JJ, so I wanted more officers over there so we could figure out what was going on.
Okay. And then what happened after that?
Lieutenant Ron Ball, Detective Dave Stubbs, and Officer Kellen Wett responded over to 565 Pioneer.
Okay. And then what happened?
Myself and Lieutenant Ron Ball attempted to make contact with Lori in apartment 175 and were unable to make contact with anybody in apartment 175.
Okay. What did you do after that?
We went to apartment 174, which was Melanie Boudreau's apartment.
I'm going to stop right there. Who is Melanie Boudreau?
It's Lori's niece.
Okay. And then what happened?
We were unable to make contact with anybody there as well.
Okay. So what did you do after that?
I was instructed by Lieutenant Ron Ball to go to the prosecutor's office and obtain a search warrant.
Is that what you did?
I went to the prosecutor's office, yes.
Did you obtain a search warrant that day?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you have any contact with Lori Vallow that day?
I did not have any contact with Lori, no.
Okay. Were you still with Detective Hope?
I was.
Do you know if he had contact with Lori Vallow that day?
He did.
Okay. Do you know?
Judge, could I have some foundation as to?
I can lay that.
All right.
You were with Detective Hope that day?
Yes.
Do you know if he ever attempted to call Lori Vallow with the number you were given?
He did. He attempted to call Lori Vallow on the way to the prosecutor's office.
Okay. And did he ever get in touch with her? Did she ever answer the phone when he called?
No, he was able to leave a message on her voicemail.
Okay. And were you with him when he did that?
I was not with him when he did that.
Judge, I'm going to
Okay.
move to strike.
Okay, reason?
Well, Judge, he has no basis other than what he was told, obviously, if he wasn't present during that conversation. I'm not sure how he can admit that conversation since he wasn't present for that. And the only way he would know that is if either Lieutenant Ball or someone else told him that took place. It's hearsay at this point, and it's not admissible.
Your Honor, we'll just move on. It's fine.
All right, that will be stricken.
I would do ask that it be stricken from the record, though.
That conversation will be stricken from the record. Just so I'm clear, Mr. Pryor, the conversation between Mr. Ball and
Your Honor, I believe it was Detective Hope that Detective Stubbs
I
listed.
apologize. I said Lieutenant Ball. Lieutenant Ball?
Detective Hope.
Detective Ball. I apologize. I meant Officer Hope. I apologize.
that conversation will be stricken.
Detective, during your investigation that day, were you able to locate J.J. Vallow?
No.
Okay. Did you, have you spoken with Detective Ball and Detective Stubbs about their investigation that day?
I have.
Do you know if parts of their investigation were on body cam?
It was.
Judge, I'm going to object again, foundation.
Mr. Wood? Mr. Pryor, the question was if Officer Hermosillo knew if it was on body cam. So I'm going to overrule that objection. That's just a question for Mr. Hermosillo. Obviously, what's in the body cam is probably a different story. You may proceed.
Thank you.
Mr. Hermosillo, you may answer that question.
It was on body cam.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to watch that body cam?
Yes.
Okay. I asked you earlier if you were able
Judge,
to.
could we approach, please?
You may. Would you like to do that back in chambers?
No.
I'll instruct the media to make sure that recording is not taking place here. We'll go back on the record. Court took a brief sidebar to discuss an evidentiary issue. Mr. Wood, you may ask that question again, please.
Detective Hermosillo, have you watched the body cam video of Detective Stubbs?
Yes.
Okay. Did you obtain a search warrant on November 26th?
On November 26th?
Yes.
No.
Okay. I'm going to call your attention to November 27th, 2019. What did you do in furtherance of your investigation on November 27th?
We were able to obtain a search warrant for apartments 175, 174, and 107 at
Okay.
565 Pioneer.
And what was the purpose of searching those apartments?
To locate JJ.
Okay. At this time, were you searching for Tylee Ryan?
No.
Were you aware of Tylee Ryan at this time?
No.
So where did you search?
All three apartments.
Okay. And just for clarity of the record, those three apartments are 175, 174, and 107 on 565 Pioneer Road?
That's correct.
Thank you. Were you able to locate JJ in any of those apartments?
No, we were not.
Okay. What evidence, if any, did you find to suggest he had been living there in any of those apartments?
In 175, there was a half-empty prescription bottle of Risperidone and also a suitcase that had JJ's name on it.
Okay, and that prescription bottle, did that have JJ's name on it?
It did.
Okay. Was there anything else of interest to you in searching those apartments?
Yes.
What was that?
The apartments appeared to be lived in. There was food in the refrigerator, food in the pantry, furniture. The only thing that was off in 175 was it appeared that there was no clothes. Everything had been taken off the hangers, and there was no clothes in the dresser drawers.
Okay. Did all three apartments appear to be lived in at the moment?
No.
Can you elaborate on that?
107 was completely vacant.
Okay. Did you obtain another search warrant that day?
We did.
What caused you to obtain another search warrant?
During the initial search of 175 in the master bedroom, a rental agreement was located for a self-storage unit on Airport Road.
All right. Do you know the name of that storage unit?
Self-storage.
Self-storage. Oh, okay. I apologize. I misheard you. Do you know the number of the storage unit?
I believe it was C52.
Okay. And did you execute that search warrant?
We did.
What did you find?
There was some winter clothing in a couple of boxes, a couple of children's bikes, and in the winter clothing, there was a couple personalized blankets. It had the pictures, looked like family pictures that were sewn onto the blankets.
Okay. Detective, what city are those apartments located in?
I'm sorry?
What city were those apartments located in?
Rexburg,
Okay. And what county is Rexburg in?
Madison County.
Thank you. Detective, at the end of November 27th, had you located JJ Vallow?
No, we had not.
Okay. What was the next step in your investigation?
Well, our next step was we were just trying to locate JJ. We had obtained search warrants for cell phone data, spoke to numerous friends of the family.
Judge, could I get some foundation, please? That's a very broad statement regarding phone records and discussing witnesses with family.
So you're making an objection on foundational purposes, is that correct?
It is, Judge. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Wood?
I'll lay some more foundation, Your Honor. As part of your investigation, did you try to locate individuals who may have known Chad Daybell or Lori Vallow?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Who were some of those individuals?
Family and friends.
Okay. Do you know any of their names?
Melanie Boudreau, Ian Pulowski, Gilbert Police had contacted family members in Arizona.
Okay. All right. Did you engage the help of any other law enforcement agencies?
We did. We asked for assistance from the FBI.
Okay. While you were searching for JJ Vallow, at any time did Lori Vallow or Chad Daybell, to your knowledge, ever call the Rexburg police to report missing children?
No, in fact, we attempted several times to get a hold of Lori, and her cell phone was shut off. We attempted to get a hold of Chad and never gotten any return phone calls. And in fact, they retained an attorney and refused to answer any questions.
Detective, during your search for JJ, did that investigation ever grow to include Tylee Ryan?
It did.
Why was that?
In speaking with family members We were also told that nobody
Judge,
had,
I'm going to object at this point.
What grounds?
Well, it's hearsay. If he's going to start, and of course nodding his head, obviously, if he's going to start reciting what other people have told him, other than what is permissible under the rules, that's hearsay, Judge. It's not admissible.
Mr. Wood, you wish to respond to that objection?
Yes, Your Honor, I think it comes in for the effect on the listener to explain what the investigator did.
Can you give me the specific exception under Rule 801?
Yes.
Are you looking at 803, Mr. Wood?
Yes, Your Honor.
And will you give me which subsection you're looking at?
Your Honor, I think it comes in under 803.1. The present sense impression explains what Detective Hermosillo learned and why he did what he did based on that.
Mr. Pryor?
Judge, in response, that's not a present sense impression. What it is there's an investigation that's going on, and what Mr. Wood is attempting to get statements from witnesses who are not here today. It's clearly hearsay, Judge. His initial response, obviously, in terms of why it comes in, was not appropriate, and this one's just as not proper in terms of a present sense impression. Not only hasn't been proper foundation to suggest there's a present sense impression, which he needs to first establish that. Secondly, if this witness would like to talk about actions that he took, I'm not going to tell Mr. Wood how to get any evidence in, but if he would like to talk about any actions this officer took as a result of talking with other people, he can do that. But clearly, the statements of those other people does not come in. It's hearsay. It's not admissible under any of the exceptions.
Mr. Wood, any other response?
Yes, Your Honor. Again, it's not coming in for the truth of the matter. It's coming in to establish why Mr. Hermosillo or Detective Hermosillo and his team did what they did.
And Judge, that's not necessary for you to bring in the statements then. All you have to do is say, officer, and I'm not again telling Mr. Wood how to try his case, but quite honestly, Judge, if he suggests to this officer, did you take any action based on what information you received from family members, we can move forward with this thing. But again, I stand by my initial objection. It is not permissible or appropriate for him to get in information from those other family members. There is another manner in which he can proceed if he wants to proceed that way. But getting those statements in is clearly inadmissible.
Mr. Wood, I'm going to sustain the objection as it pertains to specifics to what the family members stated. Those are hearsay. If there are specific statements that you're looking to get in that are not truth of the matter asserted, I'll let you continue and you can try to see what can happen. But if you're looking for specific instances or specific statements that have been made by the family members pertaining to the investigation, I'm going to sustain the objection as hearsay.
That's fine, Your Honor. Thank you. Detective, did you take any steps to learn if Lori Vallow had any other children?
we did.
Okay, what steps were those?
We spoke with family members. We spoke with her son, Colby Ryan.
Okay. And did you, in your investigation, did that investigation grow from searching just for JJ to searching for JJ and Tylee Ryan?
Yes, it did.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'd like to hand the exhibit, or the witness exhibit, State's Exhibit 8.
Exhibit 8. Madam Bailiff, if you'll please show Exhibit 8 to Mr. Pryor. Mr. Pryor.
Judge, there's no objection.
Exhibit 8 will be handed to the witness. Mr. Pryor, just so I'm clear, there's no objection to Exhibit 8 being admitted. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Exhibit 8 will be admitted.
Your Honor, I'd also ask that the witness be handed State's Exhibit 9.
Any objection to that admission?
No, Judge.
Exhibit 9 will be admitted.
Detective Hermosillo, can you look at State's Exhibit 8? Are you familiar with that,
I am.
that exhibit?
Yes.
And what is it?
It's a photograph of JJ, Tylee Ryan, and Alex Cox.
Okay, do you know where that photograph came from?
I do.
Where?
It was obtained through a search warrant from Chandler Police Department from one of Lori Vallow's iCloud accounts.
Okay, and have you had the opportunity to review the pictures on that iCloud account?
Yes, I have.
And so you recognize that picture.
Yes.
Can you tell the court what is in that picture?
It appears they're in West Yellowstone National Park.
Okay. And who all is in that picture?
JJ, Tylee, and Alex Cox.
Okay. Do you know what date that picture was taken?
September 8th,
Okay.
2019.
Pardon?
September 8th, 2019.
Thank you. Can you look at State's Exhibit 9? Do you recognize that picture?
I do.
And have you seen it before?
Yes, I have.
Do you know where that picture came from?
Yes.
Can you tell the court?
It was also obtained through a search warrant from Chandler Police Department from Lori's iCloud account.
Okay. Do you know what date that picture was taken?
September 22nd, 2019.
Okay. And who is in that picture?
It's JJ sitting on a couch.
Okay. Detective, as part of your investigation, did you attempt to locate or let me rephrase that. As part of your investigation, did you look for proof of life of JJ and Tylee?
We did.
And what, for purposes of your investigation, would suffice for proof of life?
We had set up a hotline through NCMEC, which is National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We also had a hotline set up through the FBI, and we would receive hundreds of tips on possible sightings of JJ and Tylee.
Okay. And would you follow up on those tips and sightings as part of your investigation?
We would.
And is it fair to say that a photograph of the child that you could recognize as a child could be considered proof of life?
Yes.
Okay. Detective, have you found any photographs of Tylee Ryan after September 8th, 2019 that
No.
you can positively identify as being taken after September 8th, 2019?
No, we have not.
Okay. In your investigation, have you found any photographs after September 22nd, 2019 of JJ that can be positively identified as JJ?
No, we have not.
Okay. Detective, have you been able to verify through any tip or lead any other verifiable sighting of Tylee Ryan after September 8th, 2019?
No.
And have you been able to verify through your investigation, or find, I should say, through your investigation, any other verifiable sighting of JJ Vallow after September 22nd?
No.
Okay. Detective, are you aware if a Child Protection Act was filed for JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan in Madison County, Idaho?
Yes, I am.
Were you involved in that?
I was.
How?
I was the affiant.
Okay. Do you remember when that was filed?
I believe it was January 16th, 2020.
Okay. And are you familiar with the initial order in that action?
Yes.
Did that order, let me ask this, did that order pertain to Mr. Daybell?
No, it did not.
Okay. Who did it pertain to?
Lori Vallow.
Did that order instruct Lori Vallow to do anything?
It instructed her to bring her minor children to the Rexburg Police Department or the Department of Health and Welfare within 5 days of being served.
Okay. And are you aware if Lori Vallow was ever served with that?
She was.
Okay. Do you remember what date she was served with that?
January 25th, 2020.
Okay. After that was filed, were you ever able to locate Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow?
Yes.
How did you do that?
Through tips and obtaining search warrants for cell phone data.
Okay. Where did you believe they were located?
In Hawaii, on the island of Kauai.
Okay. And did you ever have an opportunity to go there?
I did.
Okay. What did you do while you were there?
Judge, could I have some foundation, please?
Can you give some specifics as far as
Date, time, place,
Mr. Wood?
when he left, when he came back?
You got. Do you remember when you went to Hawaii?
January 24th, 2020.
Okay. Do you remember when you returned from Hawaii?
I don't remember the date.
Okay. What island of Hawaii were you on, or did you travel to?
Kauai.
Okay. Oh, and again, what was the purpose of you traveling to the island of Kauai?
To assist the Kauai Police Department with serving Lori Vallow that court order.
Okay. And when you say the order, you're referring to that child protection order we just discussed?
Yes.
Okay. Did you do anything else while you were there?
We also assisted with surveillance.
Okay. While you were there, did you ever see J.J. Vallow or Tylee Ryan?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you do anything else in furtherance of your investigation while you were there?
Yes, I did.
What was that?
I observed Kauai Police Department execute a search warrant on the defendant Daybell's vehicle and also their residence in Princeville.
Okay. Did you actually do the search, or did you just observe Kauai Police Department do that?
No, I just observed.
Okay. When you observed them, did you say you observed them search a vehicle?
Yes.
Do you know what kind of vehicle it was?
It was an SUV.
Okay.
Detective Hermosillo, I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you. If you don't mind speaking up just a little bit.
Okay. I'll scoot closer. Is that better?
Yeah, and if you point that microphone up, but aim it at your chin, it'll make a better record. There you go.
All right. That vehicle, had you observed Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow in that vehicle?
Yes.
And when you observed the Kauai Police Department search it, were Chad and Lori in the vehicle at the time it was searched?
No, not at the time it was searched.
Well, let me rephrase that. Had you seen them in it directly before it was searched?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to observe the items that were taken from that vehicle?
Some of them.
Some of them? From what you observed, did you observe anything that would indicate that J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan had been in that vehicle?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you help, or did you observe any other search warrants being served?
Yes, on their residence on Queen Emma Drive in Princeville.
Okay. Did you enter that residence?
I did.
Did you walk through the whole residence?
Not the entire residence.
Okay. What portion of that residence did you walk through?
The downstairs bedroom area and the upstairs living room.
Okay. In any of the areas you observed, did you observe anything that would indicate, did you observe anything that would indicate that J.J. Vallow had been there?
No.
Did you observe anything that would indicate that Tylee Ryan had been there?
No.
Okay. Detective, after you returned from Kauai, did you ever have a reason to go back to Kauai?
I did.
And what was that?
To also assist the Kauai Police Department with the arrest warrant of Lori Vallow.
Okay. Do you know what she was arrested for?
Minor or desertion of her minor children, 2 counts and 3 misdemeanors.
Okay.
Judge, can I also have some foundation, date, time, place?
Yes. When approximately did you return to Kauai?
Middle of February.
Okay. Do you recall what day you returned from Kauai?
a couple days after she was arrested, which was February 20th. So a couple days after that.
Okay. Did you ever have an opportunity to be in court with the defendant Vallow?
Yes.
Did you observe if she was notified of her charges?
She was.
Were you able to observe if the defendant Chad Daybell was present in the courtroom?
Yes, he was.
Detective, as part of your investigation, did you help execute a search warrant on Chad Daybell's residence?
Judge, could I have some foundation again? I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but if we could have a date, time, place, and I can get some of this in cross in terms of his representations, the last one about the middle of February. I would think that he'd have a more specific time in mind, but if we could have some specifics, I would appreciate it in terms of the date and time.
Are you talking about the courtroom issue or the warrant issue?
I'm talking about the warrant issue.
All right, Mr. Wood, it sounds like you asked the question if a warrant was done. I'll let Mr. Hermosillo answer that question. Then as far as the foundational issue, I'll sustain that objection. Mr. Wood, you'll need to lay some foundation.
Okay. Detective, as part of your investigation, on June 9th of 2020, did anything significant happen that day?
Yes.
Okay. Where did that happen?
In Fremont County at Mr. Daybell's residence.
Do you know the address?
202 North 1900 East.
Have you observed Mr. Daybell at that residence?
Yes.
Okay. What was your purpose of being at that residence?
To serve a search warrant of the property.
Okay. And did you, I believe you already said this, but just for clarity of the record, what county is that residence located at?
Fremont County.
Okay. Detective, what was the first thing you did in serving that warrant on June 9th?
We walked up to the front door to make contact with Mr. Daybell.
And what did you do after that?
We were able to make contact with Mr. Daybell's son, who answered the front door. He and another son led us into Mr. Daybell's room, where he was told that we had a search warrant for the property.
Okay, and then what happened?
Mr. Daybell came out of the room. He was able to sit in the kitchen area. He was allowed to speak with his attorney inside the kitchen area.
Okay. What happened after that?
Mr. Daybell was told if he wanted to stay on the property, which he could have, he would have to be accompanied by an officer for officer safety reasons. He was also told he was free to leave the residence if he wanted to.
Okay. And then what happened?
Mr. Daybell left and went and sat in his vehicle, which was parked in the driveway facing west off of 1900 East.
Okay. Your Honor, the state does have a demonstrative exhibit. We'd like to show the witness for purposes of clarity for the court and to further help the court understand what the detective is describing.
All right. Can you show that demonstrative exhibit to Mr. Pryor, please?
Your Honor, may I set up the easel?
You may. Mr. Pryor, an objection?
No, Judge.
Mr. Wood, have you marked this exhibit?
We have not yet, Your Honor. Your Honor, does the court have a preference on how a demonstrative exhibit is marked?
No. Why don't we just mark it as the next number that you've got there? I believe the last exhibit that was marked as Exhibit 9. This would be Exhibit 10.
Your Honor, I will mark it as such.
It'll be marked as Exhibit 10. Mr. Pryor, just so I'm clear, any objection to the publishing and/or the admission of Exhibit 10 for demonstrative purposes.
I'm sorry, Judge.
Just so I'm clear, Mr. Pryor, any objection to the publication and/or the admission of Exhibit 10 for demonstrative purposes?
No, Judge, but what I would like to do is leave that up because I'm probably going to use that on cross of this officer. So if my preference is that if when Mr. Wood is done, that remain up so that I can use it again as part of my cross-examination, if I may, Judge.
That's fine. We'll probably move it to the side if there's something that happens after this between you and cross-examination, but we'll make sure that it's available to you at cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Wood, you may inquire.
Before I do, Mr. Pryor, can you see that?
I can. Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Okay. And can the court
I can.
Okay, Detective Hermosillo, do you recognize that exhibit, State's Exhibit 10?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
It's an aerial photograph of Mr. Daybell's property.
Okay. Again, what county is that in?
Fremont County.
Now, do you recall Mr. Daybell's address?
202 North, 1900 East.
Okay. Detective, you were, correct me if I'm wrong, you were talking about what happened that morning. You'd served a warrant on Mr. Daybell. And then I believe you stated that he had gotten in his vehicle. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And can you, Your Honor, I'm not quite sure how we're going to do this with the COVID restrictions and plexiglass. So I guess we'll just take it as it goes.
If you're going to ask him to leave the witness, we'll call it the cubicle, I will ask Mr. or Detective Hermosillo to put his mask on when he goes out there to point at there's a laser light over there too, Mr. Wood, if you'd like him to use that.
That would be perfect.
Okay.
Can you make sure, Detective, that laser light works?
Yep.
Okay. And can the court and defense see that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wood.
Okay. Detective Hermosillo, can you point to where you observed Mr. Daybell in his vehicle, like you were describing?
Mr. Daybell was in this vehicle here, facing westbound. This is 1900 East.
Okay. Where were you standing?
I was standing right here, and then I was at Mr. Daybell's driver's door speaking with him, just briefly asking if he needed a code or anything out of the house.
Okay. And were you able to clearly view Mr. Daybell?
Yes.
Okay. What did you observe when you were watching Mr. Daybell?
Mr. Daybell was on the phone, sitting in the driver's seat. He had the phone in his right hand and was intently continuing looking over his right shoulder. He would look over his right shoulder for a while, break contact, talk on the phone for a second, and then he would continue looking back over his right shoulder.
Okay.
Pretty intently over his right shoulder.
Did you have an opportunity to stand in roughly that same location that he had been in that day?
Yes.
Okay. For purposes of your investigation, did you attempt to orient yourself towards in the same manner that you viewed Mr. Daybell orient himself?
Yes.
Okay. When you did that, what did you see?
Well, the second time Mr. Daybell had got out of the vehicle and went to the back of his vehicle, he was wearing a hat. He stood at the back of his vehicle looking in the same direction he was looking when he was inside the driver's seat. He took off his hat, ran his fingers through his hair, looked down towards the ground, put his hat back on, went back inside the driver's seat of that vehicle.
Okay. Now, a detective, I don't think you quite understood my question. I apologize. Must not have been very clear. When you Did you ever stand in that same location that day?
I did. I was talking with Mr. Daybell while he was outside of his vehicle.
Okay. And did you ever orient yourself in the same direction that you viewed Mr. Daybell orient himself?
Yes.
And when you oriented yourself in that same direction, what did you find yourself looking at?
The north side of the property of the pond area.
Okay. Now, when you say the pond area, can you identify that?
This here is the pond area.
Okay.
And there's a tree just to the north, just on the outer side of the pond.
Okay. Now, Detective, you testified earlier you were there to serve a search warrant, correct?
Yes.
Who were Rexburg police officers involved in serving that warrant?
Yes, Rexburg was involved.
Were there other law enforcement agencies involved in executing that warrant?
Yes, there was.
Okay. What other agencies were involved?
Fremont County Sheriff's Department and the FBI ERT team.
All right. Do you know what ERT stands for?
Evidence Response Team, or Recovery Team, I'm sorry.
Okay. Detective, I'm going to call your attention to that pond area that you just previously pointed at. Did you observe the ERT team engage in any activity on that spot that day?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What did you first observe?
I first observed the ERT team marking off different areas and grading different areas in the backyard of Mr. Daybell's property.
Okay.
Judge, could I have some time and foundation in terms of approximately what time did he observe that taking place?
I'll lay that
Yes.
foundation, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Approximately what time did you see that happen?
Roughly around 9 in the morning.
Okay. What time, and to further lay that foundation, what time did you arrive at Mr. Daybell's property approximately that day?
Approximately 7 a.m.
Okay. So you just testified that around 9 you saw them grading off certain areas. What did you observe after that?
I observed the evidence response recovery team and also cadaver dogs working the entire backyard. So they worked the pond area and then they had marked off other areas inside the backyard.
Okay. And again, at that pond area, what did you observe after you saw the cadaver dogs and the grading?
They had found an area of interest and had started focusing on the area right underneath the tree.
Okay. And did you go over to that area yourself?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Were you able to identify yourself the area of interest they were looking at?
Yes.
Was there anything that stood out to you in that area?
Yes.
What was that?
There appeared to be, and this is just a guess, but about a 4x2 area of sod, what I can best describe as sod, in a shorter grass in an area of longer weed growth. So that 4x2 area stuck out based on the greenery around it.
Okay. And then what did you observe the ERT team do there?
They began pulling up the sod and topsoil.
And then what did they do?
They continued to methodically remove dirt.
Judge, can I inquire in aid of objection?
You may.
Judge, can I inquire as to whether the officer was specifically present at the time that these actions were taking place, or did he return back to Mr. Daybell's vehicle?
You may ask the question. Detective Hermosillo, I'm going to direct you to answer that question.
Yes, I was there.
You were there at the pond and the tree?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
Mr. Wood, you may proceed.
Thank you. I believe you just testified they started removing I think you called it sod. Is that accurate?
Yes.
What did you observe them do what did you observe as they removed that sod?
They removed some topsoil that was right underneath the sod, which revealed 3 large white rocks, flat rocks.
Okay, and can you explain for the court how those rocks were oriented?
In a row. So there was a large rock, a large rock, and a large rock.
Okay. After you observed that, what did you observe next?
They removed the rocks, and underneath the white rocks was some thin wood paneling.
Okay. And what did you observe them do with that paneling?
They removed the paneling.
Okay. And then what did you observe?
Initially, as soon as they removed the paneling, I could smell the odor of a decomposing body.
Okay, Detective. I'm going to ask you some questions on that. Through your training and experience, have you had multiple occasions to be around deceased bodies?
Yes.
What are some circumstances in which you would, in the course of your duties, be around that?
In the last 19 years, I've been on plenty of suicides that had been left in apartments that were decomposing, various states. Also unattended deaths, various ages of people. So during the 19 years, I've been to a lot of those.
Okay. And is it your testimony that, to your perception, that state of a body, a deceased body in some sense of decomposition has a specific smell that you recognize?
Yes.
Okay. And it is your testimony that you recognize that smell at that location?
That's correct.
Okay. After you noticed that smell, what did you observe?
I observed the ERT team methodically move away more soil from that area.
All right. And then what happened?
They removed some soil, and there was once they removed some soil, there was a black, what I can best describe as a black plastic bag with a round object protruding through the dirt.
Okay. What did you observe the ER team do after you saw that?
They dug a little bit more around the round object, which appeared to me to be the crown of a head, protruding through the dirt. They used a small, sharp instrument to cut through the black plastic.
Okay. And what did you observe when they did that?
There was a white plastic underneath the black plastic, and they also used the white instrument to cut through the white plastic.
Okay. And what did you observe when they did that?
I observed what looked to be brown human hair.
Okay. Once that was discovered, what did you observe the ER team do? What did you observe the ERT team do?
They continued to just work around the head that was exposed. They took pictures. They did whatever their team leader instructed them to do.
Okay. Was an item of interest eventually pulled out of that area?
Yes.
And can you describe what that item of interest looked like?
It was what appeared to be a small body tightly wrapped in black plastic, covered in duct tape.
Okay. After that item was recovered, what did you observe happen with that item?
That item was then placed into the back of the coroner's vehicle.
Okay. And did you have an opportunity to observe what the coroner did with it?
Yes.
About what time of day was this?
Roughly 11
Okay.
in the morning.
What did you observe the coroner do with that that item of interest?
The coroner brought the bag up to Madison Memorial, where it was placed in the morgue.
Okay. And were you in the vehicle with the county coroner, or did you observe that from another vehicle?
I was not in the vehicle. I was following directly behind the coroner's vehicle.
Did you ever lose sight of that vehicle?
No, I did not.
Okay. And did you watch that item of interest be placed in the hospital morgue?
Yes, I did.
Detective, while you were observing what happened at the ERT site, at that site we've just discussed north of the pond, did you ever leave that site for any purpose?
Yes, I did.
What did you do? Well, about what time did you leave that site?
Before noon.
Okay. And what did you do?
I assisted Sergeant Eric Wheeler in placing Mr. Daybell into custody off of a traffic stop.
Okay. Detective, after you observed the county coroner take that item of interest up to Madison Memorial Hospital, did you return to the Daybell property?
Yes, I did.
What did you do there?
I assisted the other ERT members in excavating different areas on Mr. Daybell's property.
Okay. Can you show the court the areas you assisted in excavation?
And Judge, so that we have a clear record, could you also vocalize that as well, please?
That's fine. Mr. Hermosillo, I'm going to direct you to shine your laser pointer at that and also verbalize what you're describing, what you're pointing at.
I'm pointing to a fire pit on Mr. Daybell's property, just northwest of the fire pit. There is what we've referred to the pet cemetery, and it's just north of the pet cemetery.
And if you watch the video on this, they pan over to Kay and Larry's really broken up during this part. He's crying.
Cemetery where I helped excavate.
Okay. And that area that you just referred to as a pet cemetery, why did you call it a pet cemetery?
There was pets buried there.
Okay. Were you able to identify you said they're pets. So when you say pets, are you referring to non-human animals?
That's correct.
Okay.
And Judge, could I inquire again in terms of aid of objection?
You may.
Thank you. Officer, you had mentioned that there were pets buried there. Can you give me the source of the information that advised you that there were pets buried there?
I assisted in digging them up. There was a dog and a cat.
Did you dig up the entire pet cemetery?
I personally did not dig up the entire
Did
pet.
anybody dig up the entire pet cemetery?
I can't answer that.
Were you there?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. This line of questioning doesn't go towards any objection.
Well, he acknowledged that he had assisted in digging up a dog, at least a dog and a cat. He had mentioned pets. I think you ought to be able to inquire as to whether or not he went through the entire pet cemetery or not.
I'm going to overrule the objection. Detective Hermosillo, you can answer the question. Did you dig up the whole pet cemetery?
I personally did not. We were instructed to do different tasks. So when we started on one task, we would complete it and then we would move to something else. But there were several ERT members that were on scene that may have done that.
That may have done that, or did you observe anybody dig up the entire pet cemetery?
Again, Your Honor, this goes to a factual issue, not a legal objection.
Mr. Pryor, it appears that you're doing a cross-examination here. Which objection are you trying to lay foundation for?
Judge, I'll get the information through cross-examination. Let's move on.
Thank you. Why don't we take a brief recess? It is almost 10:30. We'll take a 15-minute recess and then we'll go back on the record. at 11:15, so 10:45.
All right.
As Detective Hermosillo's testimony continues, we are amidst a time in history marked by the growing grip of COVID-19 pandemic, an unprecedented backdrop to the intense scrutiny within the walls of the courtroom. You notice during part of the testimony, the judge is saying things about pointer, masks. There's plexiglass around the stand between the judge and between the witnesses on the stand. It's truly a remarkable, unusual time in history. As the detective's testimony hangs in the balance, shedding light on critical details surrounding the tragic deaths of Tylee, Ryan, and J.J. Vallow, we pause to acknowledge the peculiar intersection of a historical moment with the case that has captivated the nation's attention. Now, in the next episode, we will pick up right where we left off, continuing our journey through this extraordinary day in court. And we want you to stay tuned as we delve deeper into the gripping revelations emerging from Chad's preliminary hearing. Thank you so much for joining us here through this incredible, devastating, unfathomable ride through history and tragedy. Until next time, as we navigate through the unfolding events within the courtroom walls, remember, the quest for truth persists amidst the tumultuous currents of extraordinary time. Before we conclude, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each of you who have joined me on this journey through the layers of this gripping case. As a one-woman show dedicated to unraveling these chilling narratives, your support means the world. If you find value in the content and wish to contribute to the continuation of this podcast, you can show your support in a few ways. You can donate via PayPal, Cash App, or even buy me a coffee. There are links in the show notes below. Your generosity fuels the research, production, and dedication poured into every episode. Those who have graciously supported the show in the past, I extend my sincere thanks. Your contributions make a tangible difference in keeping this podcast running. Your support, whether through donations, kind words, reviews, or simply tuning in, is what drives this endeavor forward. So if you're in a position to lend support, please consider donating. Every bit counts and goes directly towards sustaining and improving the podcast. Thank you for being a part of Afterglow, Unveiling the Idaho Cult. I'm Kathy Brooks. Stay safe, stay well, and I will be back soon.